Hey, what's going on, guys? If you have been running into trouble with Crimson Desert, you are definitely not imagining it, because the official known issues notice is still active, and as of its last update on April 14th, it lists a long set of problems that can affect crashes, visuals, quest progress, controller behavior, and even some item effects. Prolobis says the team is actively investigating these issues, and the announcements page shows the game has already been getting a steady stream of hotfixes and patch updates. So this is one of those situations where the game is being worked on in real time rather than left hanging. And honestly, the pattern here tells you a lot about what is probably happening behind the scenes. A lot of these bugs line up with platform-specific graphics problems, upscaling conflicts, controller or input quirks, and quest state logic getting out of sync. That is not me guessing out of thin air. It is an inference from the way the official notices are written, because the same game is showing different problems on AMD, Intel Arc, NVIDIA, PlayStation, Xbox, handheld hardware, and even in specific menu states like the map, refinement, and quest tracking screens. The patch notes also show the developers have already fixed a bunch of stability and crash issues, improved loading times, and improved DLSS and ray reconstruction behavior, which is a pretty strong sign that many of the remaining problems are compatibility and state management issues rather than one single broken feature. Let's start with the graphics card side, because that is where a lot of the pain is showing up. The official notice says that on AMD GPU setups, if model quality is set to cinematic, the game can crash when you open and close the map in certain regions. On Intel Arc cards, the display may not render correctly, and Prolobis says that issue will be fixed in an upcoming patch. Until then, they recommend using Intel driver 32.01.8629 from Intel's website. They also call out crashes on the Intel Arc A770 when using XeSS, and broken display behavior when Intel XeS 3.0 or Intel XeS frame generation is enabled on Intel Arc A series cards. If you are on one of those Intel setups, the cleanest temporary move is to follow the recommended driver version and avoid the most aggressive upscaling and frame generation settings until the patch lands. The same thing shows up on the NVIDIA side too. The official issue list says GTX 1060 users can get a white screen if they turn on FSR upscaling and frame generation together. And it also says that using upscaling and ray reconstruction can cause background elements to flicker or look blurred. Separate patch notes say graphics quality with NVIDIA, ray reconstruction, and DLSS was partially improved, and the team said it would keep looking into the issue going forward. The known issues page also says repeatedly changing NVIDIA ray reconstruction and DLSS settings under certain conditions may cause frame drops, and that they plan to improve that in the next patch. So if someone asks what is actually causing these headaches, the short answer is that the game seems to be very sensitive to certain driver plus upscaling combinations, especially when the rendering pipeline is being pushed hard. The safest temporary fix is simple. Turn off one feature at a time, back away from the most advanced upscaling stack, and try a more standard image setting until the next update settles things down. There are also some very specific hardware problems that deserve their own mention. For the ROG Xbox Ally X, Prolobis says Crimson Desert is not launching properly on the latest driver version, and Microsoft and AMD are looking into it. Their temporary recommendation is to roll back to the previous ASUS driver version they list in the notice. That is a classic compatibility problem, and it is exactly why handheld gaming PCs can be so tricky. One driver update can be great for one game and terrible for another. The game also has a separate issue on Xbox when a wireless controller is used, and Nature's Snare sometimes cannot be used, plus an Xbox issue where fishing reel-in does not work properly when the invert right stick Y-axis setting is enabled. In that fishing case, they say turning off that setting makes reel-in work normally. So if you are on Xbox, this is not a mystery bug you just have to live with. There are actually a few official workarounds already posted. Now for the bugs that are less about graphics and more about gameplay getting stuck. The official notice says the cloud cart cannot be summoned in some cases. The next quest objective may not automatically track while progressing through certain quests, and a black screen can appear under some conditions while comrades are deployed on specific missions. There is also a tree-related bug where if you take damage while holding a tree, your character can become stuck to it. On top of that, the quest's deferred advance has a problem where retrying or abandoning the ultimate weapon fight after Blackstar's health is depleted can stop Blackstar's health from fully recovering. That kind of issue usually points to quest state variables not resetting cleanly after a failure state, which is why these bugs often feel random to the player even though they are really tied to a very specific sequence of actions. When that happens, the best move is usually to stop repeating the triggering action, save, reload, and keep an eye on whether the developers have posted a hotfix. There are a few official workarounds that are worth repeating clearly because they are the kind of thing people miss in a hurry. If nearby abyss nexuses or stone lanterns are not being marked when you use blinding flash, the notice says restarting the game can temporarily fix it. If Damian or Unka becomes invisible, Pearl Abyss says you can resolve it by switching back to Cliff through the ring menu, or by saving and reloading. If the refinement menu gets stuck on materials instead of the equipment you actually want to temper, they say to move the UI focus back to the equipment with the AI key. Avoid hovering the mouse cursor over the materials, click the tempering method you want, and then press space to select item. That is a weirdly specific bug, but the fix is just as specific, and it is a good example of a UI focus issue rather than a broken crafting system. Then there are the money and progression problems that can really annoy people. One official issue says that if your investment returns are negative, while you have no gold bars deposited in the bank, your total balance becomes 0. And the recommended workaround is to avoid using the bank's investment feature if your deposited amount is less than 500 silver, which equals 1 gold bar, until the issue is fixed. Another issue says that after using the wait feature twice, it is no longer possible to rest or wait using beds or campfires. There's also an issue where the player character's state can change abnormally under certain conditions, and another where fighting wanted criminals can fail if your own character is already wanted. These are the kinds of bugs that feel like the game's internal flags are colliding with each other, which is another reason why updates matter so much here. When a game tracks wanted status, trust, investment, rest, and quest progression in the background, even a tiny logic error can ripple into something that looks much bigger on the surface. A lot of people are also asking, how long do we have to wait for the next update? And the honest answer is that Pearl Abyss has not posted a firm countdown for every fix. What they have said is that some issues will be fixed in an upcoming patch, and one of the DLSS and ray reconstruction frame drop problems is specifically marked for improvement in the next patch, but the official notices do not give a guaranteed date for every remaining bug. That means the safest answer is keep the game updated, watch the official announcements page, and use the temporary workarounds they already posted instead of waiting blindly. The good news is that the studio has already shipped multiple fixes across PC, console, and Mac, including crash fixes, reduced loading times, improved visual behavior, and control improvements, so the pattern points toward ongoing cleanup rather than a stalled project. So if I were wrapping this up in plain language, I would say this. Crimson Desert is dealing with a real but very patchable mix of launch issues, graphics driver conflicts, UI focus bugs, and quest logic problems, and the developers are already telling players exactly which workarounds to use for several of them. Update the game first, use the recommended driver rollback or driver upgrade where the official notice names one, back off from the most aggressive upscaling settings if your screen is going white, blurry, or flickering, and use the save, reload, or restart trick for the menu and character state bugs that the team has already called out. The current official notices show active investigation, ongoing fixes, and at least some issues already lined up for the next patch, so this is very much a watch the updates and use the workaround situation rather than a dead-end problem.